Hi, everybody, and welcome to our first workshop together. So, I'm so happy you're here. I'm just so excited to have this program out there. It's been something I thought about that I held in my heart for so long. And now being able to put it out there and having all of you join with me, it means everything to me because I know that by helping parents I can best help the youth of today. And I've been working with students for 11 and a half years of them saying to me, can you talk to my mother? Can you talk to my father? Can you talk to my teacher? Can you talk to my coach? And, it took me a while to realize that if I really want to help our kids, I have to try to take everything I know to help their parents because you are the highest level influence your children will ever know. And I'm so excited that you're here. And I promise you an experience through this program where you will learn and you will grow in understanding and empathy. And together we will share and explore. And we're going to grow as people and as parents. And you know who benefits from all of that? The youth, your kids, right? All of the kids around us. You know who benefits from my growth? Not just my children, my nieces, my nephews, the students I work with in schools, the professionals that I work with in trainings. Everybody grows when you grow. So I am so happy you're here. And the first training that I want to give to all of you that I'm especially going to do for you live right now is understanding and leading Gen Z, right? And this training I did as a keynote for colleges, for school districts. I've done it at conferences, and it really gives us a broad sense of this generation. So I really want to start with this because it's going to give us a great foundation for moving forward. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen with all of you, and we can start. Okay. So I start off with faith because my question is, do you have faith in this generation? Do you have faith in your children, right? And so sometimes what happens is there are outside circumstances that we're anxious about or that we're unsure about, uncertain about, we worry about. And so these outside circumstances, they lessen our faith because we focus on the circumstances. But our youth have everything it takes to be able to deal with circumstances, right? This is a generation that can multitask. They're tech savvy. They have tons of information. They just need context to it. They really want to make a difference in this world. And so having faith in them is so important that they know you have faith in them. So one of the examples I use when I work with schools and teachers is, I know I'm going to date myself with this, and that's okay because I'm among friends here. But when I was in like second or third grade, we did a science project where we planted seeds in styrofoam cups because back then we weren't as environmentally friendly as we are now. And so we would plant these seeds in potting soil and water them, and then we left. And then we would come running in the next day and look on the windowsill. We had a giant windowsill in my classroom, and we had our names on the cups, and we would run to our cup and we would see nothing. And we would feel disappointed. We don't understand. We put these seeds in right the amount of soil, we put them right in the right place, we watered it, and nothing happened. So we would go home a little disappointed that day. And then the next day we would come in, and the next day would come in, and the next day would come in, and we would run to the cups and not see anything. And after a while of doing this, we started to lose faith. We started to feel like, you know what? I must have gotten the broken seeds. Mine don't work. And so I use that example because one day we came in and we saw something sprout. And we got so excited. Look, it worked, right? And if they weren't in styrofoam cups, we would have seen all that has to go on under the ground before anything sprouts above the ground. We would see the roots growing, getting thicker and longer so they can suck up the nutrients through the soil and the water. We would have seen all of the structure of the roots grow. But because they were in styrofoam cups, we didn't see anything. And so we were waiting to see the surface without seeing below. And what we're doing right now with our children is we are creating the roots. Our kids are in styrofoam cups. We can't see what's going on inside, but please have the faith enough to know that it is working. Faith is believing in something that we can't yet see. So when you have faith that what you're doing is working, it feels better to do it. And you do it with more passion and with more desire, right? So have faith that everything you're doing is going to matter. Now, John Maxwell says that we teach what we know, but we produce who we are. I feel like that's so powerful. We could teach what we know. We could teach information. We could teach curricula. We could teach trainings. But we are producing something also in our youth, in our children. And we're not producing information. We're not producing what we know. We're producing who we are. And so that is why you growing as a person is so critical, because they're getting pieces of you and they're going to take it with them in their journey. So by making yourself a better person, by growing in your mind, body, and spirit, you're able to produce that in your kids. And so this comes from John's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And you could see the square on the left is somebody that has education, dedication, and knowledge, but they have not yet increased their leadership ability. But you can see they're still effective, right? They still have impact. Now, if you look at the person on the right, that square on the right, that person has the knowledge, the dedication, but they've also increased their leadership ability. And look at how much more effective they are. Look at how much more impact they have. That's what happens when we grow, when we increase our leadership. Then people want to follow us because of who we are. You won't have to work so hard for them to want to hear what you have to say when you increase your leadership, because they'll want to hear what you have to say. So this program is going to build us as leaders and influencers, because you are the highest level influencer your kids will ever know. Now, when we look at the comfort zone and all the zones after the comfort zone, we see why it's so hard for our young people to come out of their comfort zone. Why is it hard for adults to come out of their comfort zone? I work with adults as a life coach, and I know for a fact it's hard to come out of our comfort zone. It was hard for me to come out of my comfort zone. And if we understand what happens when we come out, we'll understand why it's so hard for them. So look at that zone right outside of the comfort zone, right? So the second we get brave enough, strong enough, courageous enough to step out of our comfort zone, we enter the fear zone. Now, our subconscious mind has one job, and that's to keep you safe. It doesn't care if you ever grow, learn, get better. It just wants to keep you safe. And another thing to know about your subconscious mind is it doesn't know your future. It only knows your past. And it keeps record of every failure, of every terrible thing somebody said to you, of every time someone judged you. It keeps records of that. So the second we step out of our comfort zone, it starts yakking at us. Things like, Laura, where do you think you're going? Don't think you could do that. What makes you think you could do that? You never did it before. What if you flop? What if this doesn't work? What if they don't like it? What if nobody attends your trainings? What if it doesn't work? And it instills this fear, this lack of confidence. And you know what a lot of people do when that happens? They come running back to their comfort zone and they leave their dream, they leave their goal, they leave everything they want, and they come running back and they say, it's okay. I don't need that. They find excuses. And we do it as adults. So imagine how our kids feel when they're asked to do something outside of their comfort zone, right? They enter that fear zone. Look what happens in the fear zone. We have no confidence. You know why? Because we've never done it before. Of course, we don't have confidence. We'll find excuses not to do it in the fear zone because nobody wants to be afraid of failure, right? Nobody wants to be afraid of not making it work, so they come running back. And other people's opinions, the minute somebody says something to them like, what makes you think you can do that? Boom, they just abandon their dream. But look what happens when we can push through the fear zone. We get into the learning zone. That's my favorite place. We know, right, by looking at this, what's on the other side of the fear zone is the learning zone. So it gives us this visual, gives us the motivation, the inspiration to push through that, knowing that when we get through the fear zone, we're now in the learning zone. We're acquiring the new skills that we need. We're learning how to deal with the problems, the challenges, and we are extending our comfort zone. So when I'm in the learning zone, my subconscious mind says, oh, okay, maybe it is safe here. Maybe you are going to be okay. All right, this could be our new comfort zone. And now we have a new comfort zone. And then we get into the growth zone. And that's when we start to see the results. We find our purpose. We can live our dreams. We set new goals. We're out to conquer in the growth zone because we see results. But to get there, you need to get through the dreaded fear zone. Okay? So it is not easy when we tell our kids, run for office at school or try out for the play or, try out for the team. It's hard. They're in that fear zone the minute they do it, right? So understand this about the comfort zone so that when we ask them to come out of their comfort zone, we know what it's like. Because we want them to come out of their comfort zone. I want you to come out of your comfort zone. Being in this program might put you out of your comfort zone. I'm glad you're here because growth never happens in a comfort zone. Nothing grows there. It's stagnant, right? We don't want to stay there. So looking at these generations, take a note of what generation you are, right? When were you born? And just think about your generation. What bonded you together? And now we're going to talk a little bit about Gen Z. So Gen Z, and depending on which research you look at, and there's always some overlap in generations, but Gen Z is typically 1996, 97 to 2012, 2013. And then the generation born after that is Generation Alpha. But there's always a few years overlap, right? So for instance, the millennials really go to 96, 95, but if somebody's born 97, 98, it's an overlap. So, we really, it's hard to judge when there's, right on the cusp of a generation. But these are all characteristics of these generations, right? So let's dive in. So yes, Gen Alpha will be the one that follows Gen Z. So those will be students born with technology even closer to everything they do, right? So Gen Z may not have had iPads doing, videos and, different learnings when they're 1 or 2 or 3, but Gen Alpha will. So our Gen Z is a big generation. It makes up 25.9% of the population, making it the largest generation ever, right? Talking about a lot of people. They grew up in a hyper-connected world. Social media connected them with people around the world, but yet they lack connection. So as much as they're connected, they don't feel connected because they're lacking the human connection. It's different for them. And connection is a #1 protective factor when it comes to suicide prevention. So connection is a big deal, right? And they'll tell me they don't feel so connected, even though they probably have more connections than most people ever will. So they're motivated by security, right? They were born into a world that doesn't feel very safe and secure to them. And so if you can make them feel secure, you win them over. And I talk to teachers about this all the time. If your classroom can be a place of security, if they could feel safe in there, it's going to be one of their favorite places to be. They're comfortable with the newest things. And some people look at this and say, oh, they want everything. This is their means of communication, a mobile device, right? Technology is their means of communication. So yes, when something new comes out that helps them to communicate, yeah, they'd like to get it, right? They are living in the world where there's touch screens and social media and an app for everything, right? Now, some of these apps are great. There are apps when it comes to self-help. There are apps out there for meditation. There are apps for all kinds of relaxation that they can do before they go to sleep or to feel calm. There's Headspace, which is a great app for that. There's something called Calm, which is a great app for that. There are even apps for students that self-harm, right? There are safety apps out there so that if I'm talking to a student that was feeling suicidal and we download a safety app on their phone, it works great because they put in all the information, and then if they start to have those kinds of thoughts, they can go right to their safety plan, right? So lots of these things can be good. Social media, I can't tell you how many students have called the crisis center where I work because they saw a student struggling on social media. So it can be used for good. And they are true digital natives. They are tech dependent. If you take it away from them, they won't know what to do because you are literally taking away their lifeline. And it's not a very good feeling when somebody threatens that in your life. And so we don't always realize that. We sometimes don't understand that connection they have to their technology. 92% of them have a digital footprint, meaning if we Google them, we will find them somewhere out in cyberspace. And Gen Z are big on individuality. So they have the ability to follow influencers. They have the ability to follow sports heroes. They have the ability to follow celebrities. And they do, right? And they're looking for people that might be different. And you might look at them and think, I don't like how different they are. But there's something about them that they find refreshing or intriguing. And even if you don't feel you like the influencer they're following, ask them what it is that they like about them, what it is that they want to see in them, what it is about them that makes them so curious. They shift very quickly in and out of a virtual world. Boom, boom, back and forth. They do it flawlessly, and they are multitaskers. I couldn't understand how my son would do his homework and then watch a YouTube video and then go back to his homework. I couldn't understand it. I would think he would be totally distracted, but it was his break. It was like a little break, and he was able to maneuver back and forth with ease. And they do it with distraction. Now, we're not so good at that stuff, right? Some of us are good multitaskers, others are not so much. This generation has been multitasking from day one. It's how they're growing up. They are more entrepreneurial. They don't want to be capped by a business in the way of how much money they can make, what they do, the hours they have to be there. Many of the students in this generation, they don't get excited about working 60 hours a week like some of us did. And so we look at that and sometimes we think they're lazy or they don't want to work hard. They've grown up watching YouTubers make millions of dollars from their couch. Okay? They see possibilities all around them. And I know we look at that sometimes and we wish that they would just get a nice, secure job, right? But, we think about it, what's a nice, secure job? Because I've seen a lot of really good people that have worked really hard let go of their really secure jobs like that. And so have they. They have lived through now 2 very big economic downfalls, and they've watched lots of people get laid off from jobs. They watched the millennials, the generation before them. They were a very college-driven generation. They went to college, most millennials. And even if it meant that they had great student debt, student loans, they still went to college. And so Gen Z watches the millennials now and what's happening. They get out of college and they have these debts and they're lucky to be finding a job that can pay their student loans. So when they look at it like that, it doesn't always look very attractive, right? So many of them, 55%, as a matter of fact, according to Forbes, said that they are more likely to start their own business. They want to do their own thing. They want to be responsible for themselves. Now, as a parent, that could be scary, and I get it. Believe me, I get it 100%. I have this with, one of my own children right now. So I went through this. But again, it's about looking at it through their eyes. They saw the recession of 2007, 2008. I saw that happen too, right? They saw the recession now, right, with COVID and the markets crashing. And they saw their parents struggle financially. Some people had to sell their homes. Some people lost their college funds for their kids. They saw all of this happen. And so because of that, they have a strong appetite for money, financial success. Show me the money, right? They want to be secure. And how can we be secure? Very often we feel that money can help us to be secure. So yes, they are looking for financial success, but they also want to make a difference. And they want to do something that does make a difference. And they are willing to work hard and they are motivated when it comes to achieving their dreams. But very often, I see youth that are expected to work really hard, not for their dreams, but for somebody else's dream. Sometimes we want to steer them in the way of the job market, what jobs are hot, what jobs are available. And we don't always try to find out what their dreams are. And I feel like I met a lot of young people that are expected to work hard for somebody else's idea, and they don't, right? They don't. We can't expect them to work hard for something that isn't their dream. So find out what their dreams are. Now, some characteristics of this generation: they have a post 9/11 memory. So yes, they were born into a world that they never knew as safe. Never. Now, we might have our own feelings after 9/11, but we have cells of recognition of a world that was safe at one time. The United States used to be a safe place at one time. We remember that. They don't. Okay? So they never knew this world to be a safe place. And since they were born, There have been mass shootings and school shootings and all of those things on the rise. That didn't help them to feel safe. Their main method communication is a mobile device. They have the highest rates of anxiety, depression, substance use disorder, and suicide. They don't want to, but they know that their generation is high in this. You can ask young people, fourth or fifth grade, about anxiety, and they know what it is. I've worked with sixth graders who knew exactly what a panic attack was, right? They know that this is rampant in their generation, and they feel misunderstood. Parents are stressed out, right? It's hard to be a parent today. And we're living in the longest passage of adolescence ever known. My husband does not like it when I say that, but it's true, right? Because adolescence is the period it takes for their internal world, their internal skills to meet the external world. Now, our external world, our world out there, is complicated. And so adolescence used to be until age 18, but now there's transitional adolescence, which goes through age 24, right? So we've got parents having their kids coming home from college. We've got parents having their grown kids coming home with their families. And so parents are stressed. There's a lot of extra demands on parents today. And to have empathy, one must seek to understand. And that's going to be one of the things we talk about in this program, is seeking to understand. There is a deeper meaning for everything. And if we look at, Pew Research Center did this study, and it showed world events, right? World problems. And they did a survey to see who's more stressed out about the nation's problems today, Gen Z or adults. And if you look at all of these world problems in this study, you can see clearly our students are more stressed out than the adults are. And remember, they have a very limited ability to handle this kind of stress. But this is what they feel, and they know what's going on. And they know what's going on because they get alerts to their phones, right? Many students get the news to their phones, right? Or they see it on Twitter, right? They'll follow journalists, or they'll follow people that'll tweet all of these horrific tragedies that go on. Now, when I was young, I would have to watch the news or read the newspaper to know if there was a tragedy in the world. And I'm just going to say that the odds of me doing either one of those when I was young was slim to none. I didn't do it. And so therefore, I got to be a kid, and I got to ride my bike, and I got to worry about my problems. And I got to figure out how to solve my problems, which were age appropriate for me. I didn't have to worry about all the problems in the world. I wasn't seeing them come to my phone every time something happened. And when they do go to their phones, they're usually in video format. Now, I use these two in particular because they both happened the weekend of August 4th. And August 4th of 2019, I was on a retreat with youth. And I had them coming up to me with their phones saying, "Laura, did you see what happened? Laura, look what happened. Laura, did you see this?" And they would play the videos of these shootings. And you could hear the gunshots, and you could hear people screaming. And these young people were listening to this over and over. And if they didn't get it to their phone, their friend did, and their friend was showing them. And I just thought to myself, this is trauma. This is trauma right now. They don't know what to do with this. We can't understand what's going on sometimes. How can they make heads or tails of this? And what if they're seeing this and they're not talking to their parents about it? Then they're making their own interpretations about it. I had a million concerns that weekend, and I had long talks with all of them. But know that this is what they're seeing, and literally seeing and hearing it, right? So they know what's going on in this world, and they have very limited ability to deal with it. So could COVID-19 be this generation's 9/11? Right? Their worlds abruptly stopped. School became school from home. They didn't get access to their trusted adults in school. Parents started working from home. Everything changed. Now, maybe for some people, being home was a good thing. I heard from a lot of students that had a really hard time with it. So this is something these are conversations to have, because every generation has things that bond them. Age of onset, when we talk about mental health challenges, okay, half of all lifetime mental illness, anybody that's ever going to be diagnosed with a mental illness, half of them have signs and symptoms. They begin by age 14 and 3/4 by age 24. Okay, so we're seeing some signs and symptoms during these years of adolescence. But then there's this overlap, because then there's adolescence, right? And adolescence is a time of vast neurological change. So there's a big overlap with things like anxiety. Are they going to feel anxiety? Oh, you betcha they will. It is the number one mental health challenge they have. So yes, they'll have anxiety. Yes, they'll feel down at times. They might even have different personalities at times, right? But how do we know if there's need for further exploration? So we know when it affects, whatever's going on affects 3 key areas of their life. It affects their ability to go to school or work, depending on how old they are. It affects their relationships and having satisfying relationships in their life. And it affects their routine. If they played sports, but now they don't. If they went to clubs, but they don't want to go anymore. If they were involved in any volunteer programs and they're pulling away. When you see those 3 key areas change, that's cause to start exploring what's going on. So anxiety is typical. They're going to have it. We all do, right? We all have some sense of anxiety. But when that anxiety gets in the way of those 3 key areas, the ability to go to school or work, the ability to have satisfying relationships with people, and the ability to keep our routines going, then that is further need to explore. Because typical anxiety doesn't stop those 3 key areas of our life. So that's what we have to look for. And if you look at this, these are median ages. So when we look at anxiety disorder as age 11, we know that it's younger and older, right? So we know we have some young people experiencing anxiety. So this is something to really pay attention to. And median delay in seeking treatment for mental health challenges is 10 years. 10 years. So, for instance, anxiety and depression, those are 2 mental illnesses that can co-occur very easily, right? So let's just say I have a lot of anxiety and I don't learn how to deal with it. And so it starts getting worse and worse and worse. And now it affects those 3 key areas of my life, but nobody's recognizing it. And let's just say the school calls my home, but my parents say, no, they're fine. So I don't get help. And let's say I'm 10 or 12. According to studies, it will take me 10 years before I get help with it. Now, within those 10 years, odds are depression will develop. And so by the time I go for help, now I don't just have anxiety. Now I have anxiety and depression. And the depression doesn't replace the anxiety. So now I have two co-occurring illnesses. And most young people that deal with anxiety and depression and don't get help end up using substances to numb the pain. Okay, so then there could be three. This is why early intervention matters. This is why if you get a call from a school or anyone that says, we're seeing signs and symptoms of anxiety in your child, please listen to them. They are not calling you to cause trouble or because they want to make a big deal out of something. They see something. And I know that that's a hard thing for a parent to hear sometimes, but the sooner we can get to somebody feeling extensive anxiety, the sooner they can get help. Anxiety, although it is the most common mental health challenge of this generation, it is the most manageable. We know what to do with anxiety. There's a lot we can do with anxiety. There's dialectical behavior therapies, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's all kinds of relaxation methods, there are strategies to use. There's so much we can do. But when we let it go, that's where there's a danger. So when we talk about anxiety, it could show up in all of these ways. Overthinking. This generation overthinks a lot. Avoidance and procrastination. I want to go to those because I hear this all the time. Parents will say, why does my child procrastinate? Why do they wait for the last minute to do everything all the time? And they don't recognize that sometimes that's a sign of anxiety. You know, our students have so many stressors and so much anxiety that if I have a project due next week, my goal today is just to get through the day. You know, I've got drama with my friends. You know, my girlfriend is mad at me. My other one's having problems that I'm trying to help her with. I have tests. I have things that are due today. That project next week, I can't think about it right now. Just thinking about it gives me anxiety. So you know what? That's not till next week. Maybe tomorrow I'll think about that. And then tomorrow comes. And now I have what's due today. And I've got other stuff going on in my life. And then there's stuff in my family. And that project that's due next week, that I can't think about that right now. And it continues. And before they know it, that project that was due next week is due tomorrow. And now the stress and anxiety is even greater. And so by looking at that from the outside, we sometimes think they procrastinate. Why do you wait for the last minute? And then we make them feel badly about it. How different would that be if we said something like, I know that you knew this project was due a while ago. And I'm wondering if you felt a little anxious thinking about it. I mean, can you even imagine how that conversation would go? They don't want to leave things for the last minute. And sometimes the anxiety causes that to happen, right? Think about it in your own life. If you have a big bill to pay, do you pay it early? I know me, when I have to pay my taxes, I don't even like thinking about it. I don't even open the envelope until when I know it's due, okay? So that happens sometimes when things make us anxious. Panic attacks, they come from our thoughts. That's how strong our thoughts are. That's how meaningful our thoughts are, right? So I helped a student on the hotline not long ago, and he was having a panic attack. And he knew it because he said he has panic attacks. So he knew it was one. What was causing the panic attack was his thought of failing his math test in the morning. He had a big calculus test. And he said, I know I'm going to fail it. I know I'm going to fail it. And when I fail it, they're going to take me out of the AP track. And when they take me out of the AP track, I'm not going to get into the college that my father went to. And then I'm probably not going to get into college at all. And so you could see how one anxious thought led to 10 anxious thoughts in seconds. And so our brain doesn't know the difference between a really good imagined scenario and one that really happens. And so our brain is thinking, you're not getting into college? Oh no, threat, 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 fight or flight, boom, boom, boom. And it releases adrenaline and cortisol, hormones that are released when we are in danger, because our brain believes we are in danger, right? And if I'm face to face with a grizzly bear, I'm going to need that adrenaline and cortisol, because I'm going to need to run really fast and I'm going to need to scream really loud. But if I'm in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and those thoughts come and my brain goes to panic, what do I do with that adrenaline and cortisol when I'm laying in bed? I have a panic attack. That's what happens. And I feel like I can't breathe. I could be seeing red. My heart is pounding out of my chest. My body is going limp, or my legs feel like jello. And all of that is going on from a thought, one thought, one thought. Now, if that's how powerful our thoughts are, that one negative thought could spiral fast and cause our body to go into a full out panic attack, which mimics a heart attack. There are health professionals that say that until they do testing, sometimes they don't know the difference between a heart attack and a full out panic attack. Our thoughts can cause our body to go into that mode. So imagine what happy thoughts do. Imagine what positive thinking does for ourselves, right? But that's not usually their focus. Needing reassurance. I hear they're needy. Why do they need so much from us? That could be a sign of anxiety, needing reassurance, right? All of these things can be how anxiety presents. So be aware of that. EQ, your emotional intelligence, you are the leader, right? And you know what that means? That means because you're the leader, you are going to feel emotions before they do. Now, good leaders know when to display emotions and when to delay emotions. And they do it for the betterment of the team, not the leader. So sometimes as parents, we let our emotions out in front of our kids. And sometimes the truth is we have to put ourselves together before we talk to them. Because if they see us as their leaders, not being able to manage the emotions that we have, that is not going to make them feel very safe, secure, and they're going to take their lead from you. So if your emotions are overwhelming, that's going to cause them to really feel like they're in panic. So understand that as the leader, your emotional intelligence, which is how well you manage your emotions, is critical. Okay, I didn't change this slide. I'm sorry. I meant to change it, but it's still as it was when I did this last at a school. So is your environment in your home conducive for growth? Because if it's not, they may not really reach their highest and greatest potential, right? So in every acorn, there's the seed of an oak tree. An oak tree lives in every acorn. But will every acorn become an oak tree? I live in a very wooded area, and in the fall, many acorns fall on my driveway. They're not going to become oak trees because my driveway is not the environment conducive for their growth. It's not going to give them fertilized soil. It's not going to give them water. It's not that they can't even grow roots in my driveway. So they'll never become the oak tree that they have the capability of being because their environment was not conducive to their growth. Is your home conducive for growth? Right? Something to think about. Now back to our listed generations. Now, when I'm doing this keynote in schools, one of the things I ask them to do is I usually have a sheet of paper, and on one side it talks about what is your generation, how did you play, what was your family life like, and how was your friendships, what was that like, how did you communicate, right? And on the other side, it was now answer those same questions for Gen Z. How do they play? What are their relationships like? What are their family like? How do they communicate, right? So that you can see the vast differences in these generations, right? And just to bring awareness about this generation. So again, you're their greatest influencer. You're the highest level influencer they'll ever know. And so many parents stop growing. And that's why I'm so thrilled that you're here. I'm so proud to even know you, that you want to invest your time, your money, your learning in how to be the best person you can be to raise your children. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to know you. And your children will really get the benefit of all that you're doing right now. So I hope you learned through this. I hope you have takeaways. I hope you wrote them down. And when we have our session, I can't wait to hear about them and talk more about this generation and more about what we can do. And actually get, a little connected with all of you and be a little more specific in our sharing. Okay, so thank you for being here. And until next time, take care.